Beyond Roanoke Entertainment presents a YouTube and podcast production.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we're talking with Lee Money with one of the Ghostbusters chapters. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. And, I also have a podcast of my own over on Redline Radio LLC as well.
Very nice. I was looking at that, trying to uh see what was going on there. That's pretty cool. Is that like a
Yeah,
nationwide thing or?
yes, actually, we are an internet radio station. We live stream video to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch.tv, Instagram, Twitter, and we are, constantly expanding. Right now, we have 14 live shows that go on every day of the week. Some days we have more shows than others, obviously. you know. But yeah, I mean, I've been there since the end of May of 2021, so I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary here with them real soon. I'm having a great time over there. I started out as just a show host, and I've managed to make my way all the way up to the station manager.
Very cool.
Yes.
Can you tell me about how some of that stuff works? Because I'm not super familiar with live stuff like that, like
hmm
podcasts. I kind of understand that kind of stuff, but this is
Yeah.
all new to me.
Yeah. So the way we do it, we have two studios. We have one where it's, basically we have like, the red line banners and everything behind everybody, and it's just a 480, not 480, 1080p camera sitting on a table, and they have like a professional microphone in front of them, and, they're free to do their show either in an hour time slot or 2 hour time slot. We use a website that allows us to stream to multiple entities at one time, so, we're able to stream to Facebook, YouTube, all those places that I mentioned simultaneously. Um, and everybody has their own theme songs and obviously their own style of show and everything that they do. With my show, Money's Crazy Mind, it's basically, I try not to go in with an agenda, because I feel like if I sit there and say, okay, I'm going to plan out my show and I want to talk about this and I want to talk about that and I want to talk about that. And then if I get on a tangent about one topic, I may not get to some of those other topics. So I don't go into my show with an agenda. Like, I'll just sit there and be like, okay, what's some of the stuff that I want to talk about this week? Okay. Nancy, or not Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris was treating everybody like children when she was talking to Fox News about the situation over in the Ukraine. And it's like, I feel like everybody that's watching Fox News is a little bit more educated than a uh, pre-kindergarten level, and there's no reason to sit there and say Ukraine's a little country, Russia's a big country. The big country decided that the little country was being mean to them, so they decided to beat them up. And that's wrong. And that's literally like the way she was talking in this news interview. And I'm like, okay, Professor Sesame Street, like let's act like the vice president of one of the most powerful countries in the world. You know what I mean? So
Right.
so that's something that I do. And then I also have a segment called Crazy. I'm allowed to swear on there. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on there, so I'll
Oh
say
yeah.
crazy. Okay, crazy shit you find on the internet. So I told a story about this guy that was buried a very long time ago, and one of the things that he was buried with was a 24 karat gold penis sheath, and there was pictures to prove it. And I'm like, okay,
Wow.
that's definitely crazy stuff you find on the internet, you know. And then I have another segment that I do every week called Sad But True News, and it's not necessarily comical. It could be very, very serious, but it's sad news, but it's true news. Like, I got a story last week about a guy in Florida that was hiding a video camera in the women's bathroom of a 7-Eleven, or not a 7-Eleven, a Circle K. And I accidentally made the joke on there that, wow, with OnlyFans and Pornhub, who needs to hide a camera in a women's bathroom these days? And then I thought about it. I'm like, well, maybe the girl that was working at the gas station had an OnlyFans and it was too expensive for this guy, so he thought he'd just get his content for free. Turns out that was the case.
Wow.
So I'm like, oops. Sad but true. you know.
Yeah.
You
So
know.
it sounds like you're all over the place when you're doing that, and
Mhm.
that's I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about comic books, I'll talk about movies, sometimes I'll throw a little sports in there. The one thing that I always try to stay away from, and I don't think people completely understand it, is I try to stay away from politics. Because who wants to hear politics when you're listening to a podcast? You listen to a podcast to escape politics, in my opinion. So if I can sit there and just spout dick and fart jokes for 2 hours at people, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Right. And then, obviously, sometimes I'll go in there with shows planned. I mean, like the last 4 weeks of my show, which I think is how you found me, was when I reached out to everybody in the Ghostbusters community about Ivan Reitman's unfortunate passing.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that obviously wasn't my plan for that week for my show. So I kind of got, I don't want to say suckered into doing that because it definitely wasn't, definitely wasn't being suckered in. But I ended up having to fall into that because of what happened. So that was my topic for that show, and that was a phenomenal show. And again, if anybody that was on that show is listening, I appreciate everything that everybody did for that show. That show went off better than I ever could have hoped, and I got tremendous feedback about that show. So I just want to thank everybody that was involved in that. Everybody, even if your content didn't make the live show, I put out a video of every piece of everything that everybody sent me. So everybody that had their content out or sent me content got their content into the show one way or another, be it a bonus episode on my YouTube or my Facebook page or in the live show. And we went over my time that week too. So, I appreciate everybody for that, man. I could not ask for anything better.
Yeah, I mean when that happened, man, we lost a true icon.
Oof, who you telling? Who you telling, man? I'm like I said, I'm happy with the way that show turned out. It was definitely one of my better episodes, and I'm not just trying to toot my own horn because I don't want to do that. And with me being the station manager of Redline Radio, I have the ability to impart the knowledge that I've had onto everybody else that's at the station. Because like people coming up to me all the time, hey man, I want to do some stuff with the green screen too. Well, move your show over to our green screen studio, and I'll be more than happy to help you make your show look exactly the way you want it to look, sound the way you want it to sound. I'm constantly finding royalty-free music that just plain out kicks butt, man. Like, I found a bunch of rock music because that's more my forte, and I love the crap. I'm just like, I'm never playing a real song on my show again. Not only because Facebook are a bunch of jerks and will stop my show stream the second I start playing something copyrighted, and screw them for doing that. But it's the same thing with YouTube. I did a tribute to Meatloaf. And when I went on break, I played I Would Do Anything for Love, but I Won't Do That. YouTube completely stopped my stream until the song ended.
Wow.
And I'm just like, well, what the hell? Like you can't give a dude a warning? Like, come on. But it is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, anybody that has any questions about anything, I mean, we offer an internship program. If you're in the Northeast Ohio area, you can come in and learn anything you want about podcasting. Just reach out to us, man. You can reach out to myself, Lee W Money on Facebook. Just shoot me a message and say I'm interested in the Redline Radio intern program, and I'll be more than happy to bring you into one of our studios and get you guys learning. If you guys have a podcast and you want to bring it to our network, again, reach out to me, or you can reach out to our owner, Dave Wallencheck, or just message the Redline page. We both have access to it 24/7. We'll get back to you, and our courteous and efficient staff is on call 24 hours a day for all your podcasting and radio needs. I mean, if I can borrow a line from Ghostbusters, but
Now,
go ahead.
I was gonna ask you,
Mm-hmm.
is it just in the area that you guys offer people to come in, or
With the way that we can do technology nowadays, no. I mean, we'd be happy to have a show, with the software. I don't want to call it software, it's a website, but with the website that we use, I mean, one of our show hosts is in Columbus, Ohio, which is about 4 to 5 hours away from where we are in Cleveland and Berea. And we send him a link every week. He jumps on the show and he does the show out of his basement in Columbus. I mean, right now I'm sitting in what is supposed to be my home studio, but my computer wants to be stupid and not work right, um, which I think might just be an issue with Windows 11 now, because I just restarted it and now it wants to play nice, but I don't want to have to stop this and restart.
right?
uh, but that's neither here nor there. But whatever. So yeah, I mean, if anybody from across the country, wants to do a show and has a decent enough camera, a decent enough microphone. Just because some of our listeners are kind of picky with that, like, oh, you sound washed out or underwater or whatever, and we're supposed to, kind of be professionals, so, but if you've got decent enough stuff, man, yeah, I mean, you want to bring your show to Redline, reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to see if we can work some kind of deal out with you.
Excellent, excellent. Because
Hmm.
I was curious about that, just because
Yeah,
I'm starting out brand new. This is all new to me, so
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
trying to gather some information on podcasting as well.
yeah. And I'm always here to help people. If I can't, I don't want to say persuade somebody to come to Redline, but if what we offer at Redline doesn't sound like it's good enough to you, I can at least get you in the right direction and point you in the direction that you want to go. I'm always interested in helping people. So, I've been podcasting for 5 years, you know, um, and it hasn't always been Money's Crazy Mind. Before that, my show was called On the Money, and I found out there were about 900 podcasts called On the Money on YouTube, and 899 of them were about finances, and one of them was dick and fart jokes. And if you tried to search the one that's about dick and fart jokes, you couldn't find it because of the 899 shows that were about finance, all with the
Right?
same name. So, I did some research. I typed in, and my real last name is Money. Like, I'm like, that's not a gimmick. Like, that is my birth name, believe it or not. And so I'm like, I typed in Money's Crazy Mind. I didn't get that many results. So I'm like, that's the name of the show I'm going with. Relaunched. My first episode was about the 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters. Go figure. And, I was off to the races from there, and I learned a lot from the comments and the emails and stuff that I would get from the people that actually could find the dick and fart jokes on the money and say, there's 9 million podcasts about professional wrestling. Find some new content. And that's exactly what I did. And the content changes week to week. I'll do true crime one week. I'll do, like I said, comic books, movies, TV, music. Um, like I said, the last 3 weeks of my show have either been the death of Ivan Reitman, the war in the Ukraine, because I have a buddy that actually is a private investigator that used to work with Homeland Security. So he has some information on that, and he wanted to come on my show and talk about it. And then just this past Friday night's episode, a buddy of mine, who actually is in the band that does my theme song for my show, passed away in a motorcycle accident. And because those guys have been so good to me and good to my show, I dedicated my time slot to his memory. And we just
Wow.
told stories about him. And you think a lot of people watched that episode? Probably not, because they didn't know who the hell I was talking about. They just know it's the guy that says, if you can't take a joke, then I'm going to sleep with your sister, in my theme song, But again, that just falls into that category. If you can't take a joke, or you have to take everything I say seriously, then don't watch my show. It's not for you. I'm not politically correct. I have a very serious potty mouth. you know, and I say whatever is on my mind. Somebody actually made a really good comment about that this past Friday night, where they're like, you have the umpire's mentality. You call it like you see it, and if you don't like the call, then live with it. And I think that's the best way to explain it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And see, that gives me insight on what I'm doing too, just because I'm still
Hmm.
trying to figure out everything as far as just the distribution, and I'm sure I'm
Hmm.
going about it all wrong, but it's a learning thing for me because
Right.
I'm self-taught when it comes to our YouTube channel.
And I was too, man. I mean, I just started. I bought a cheap little microphone off of Wish. I'll admit it. I bought a cheap microphone off of Wish. It was better than what was built in on my laptop, or better than any headset I could possibly buy. So, but my audio sort of sounded like this sometimes, and that was just something I had to deal with. And then, once I started learning a little bit more, and I found out about some free, and that's the best word you can search when you're doing this, is free, especially when you're first starting out. Getting monetized is a hell of a lot harder than these YouTubers make it look.
Oh
Like I said,
yeah.
I've been doing this 5 years, and I'm with a professional radio station, and I am still not monetized. But that's the thing. If you have this is the biggest thing I tell all the new shows that come to us. If you have passion and you can deal with low numbers while you're first starting out until people learn your content and decide if it's for them or not, then you can go and you can make this whatever you want it to be. But if you're in it to make money, turn around and walk out the door, because it's not going to happen. At least not right
Exactly.
away.
And I
At
couldn't
least not.
agree more. It's like it's a passion thing. You got to love it.
Hmm. And that's the whole thing. Like, I was trying to find myself for so long. And I think this is the other best advice I can give somebody. Your show needs to be who you are. You are your brand at that point. And this is actually just something I brought up in our station meeting with our producer. And I'm like, you have to not tell these guys to think of it as a show. Because if they think of it as a show, the best analogy I can give is professional wrestling in that aspect. It's because I've been in the business, I've seen the business from the inside out, not just as the guy watching Monday Night Raw or AEW Dynamite every week. I've been on the inside. I've worked with wrestlers. I've done commentary. I've been in creative meetings. I know the business inside and out. If you tell somebody that this is a show, that's how they're going to treat it. They're going to be a character. They're not going to be themselves. When in reality, the best wrestling characters that have ever existed are people that are just themselves. Stone Cold Steve Austin, when he was the Hollywood Blondes with Brian Pillman, when he was Stunning Steve, that wasn't working. He got fired from WCW. Paul Heyman in ECW gives him a call, says, "Come on my show, air your grievances, but be Steve Williams. Don't be Stunning Steve. Be Steve Williams." He comes on there and he does Monday Night Geritol and talks about how nobody in WCW is under the age of 30, and they're all the guys that are washed up. That's when Vince McMahon gave him a call and said, "We have a character that we think is going to work for you." Steve walked in, says, "I'm not doing this character. I want to be this character." Shaved his head, grew the goatee, started doing the Austin 316 and all of that. And he's the biggest name in professional wrestling still to this day. I think he's bigger than Hogan.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so that's what I always try. That's the way I tell people to be. If you can't be yourself, you're never going to sell your brand. Think of this as a brand. What do you want your brand to be? You're selling a product at this point, and that's the only way you're going to get people to look at
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, you said it already, but if you're
it.
if you're after the dollar, you might as well forget about it because it's not that no matter what you do, it's not going to work.
Nope. And I mean, even though I'm the station manager, I get paid in experience. But not only that, but I get paid in bringing the knowledge that I've brought to Redline. Because when I got to Redline, you know, I don't want to say they needed help, but like I just saw a couple of things like, hey, let's try this, let's try that. And mainly it was with my show because I knew how I wanted my show to look, my show to sound, and my show to feel, you know? And the guy that was the station owner, he's like, wow, that works. Can we try that on another show? Yeah, do it. And a couple months later, he came to me. He's like, you want to be our executive producer? Okay. So then I started saying, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we do that? Why don't we do this? Why don't we leave what we're doing currently and try to do this? Let's get our stuff out to different audiences. Let's see if it helps our numbers. And it has been. There's over 5,000 people that like the Redline Radio page on Facebook. And we get about all 5,000 of those people to watch at least one of our shows every week. And we're in Cleveland. And our number one show is about the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow. Hey, though.
And I mean, I'm a co-host on it. I'm a Steelers fan. I'll be the first one to admit it. Anybody from Cleveland, I'm sorry, our football team sucks, and I think they're making horrible decisions in free agency. Not to say that the Steelers are making great decisions in free agency, but I mean, we go on there, we get over 1,000 views a week on Steel City Renegades, and now we're hosting a NASCAR show. We get about 600 people watching that a week. So I mean, that's just it. You have to find your audience. And the only other thing that I can recommend to anybody out there that is wanting to start a podcast or has a podcast that might be struggling or anything like that, go on YouTube and type in podcast in the search and join every group you can find and ask questions. Because a lot of these people are like the way I started out, or like you starting out, or like probably 900 of the other podcasts that are out there, or probably even 9 million of the other podcasts that are out there. And they're recording in either a home studio that they've built themselves, or they're recording in their basement, you know? And that's the best advice I can give anybody. Ask questions. The only way you're ever going to learn is if you ask questions. And I tell that to my show host all the time.
Yeah, and you're right there. I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube stuff when it comes down
Hmm.
to podcasting to try to learn as much as I can.
Yeah. And this program that I've never heard of it, or I've never really, I shouldn't say I've never heard of it, but I've never used it. But I mean, there's tons, and again, I'm going to use this word because it definitely helps you when you're first starting out. There are tons of free tools that are powerful that maybe not everybody else is using. That if you start using it, you have a leg up in the business, and it's going to make your show look, sound, and feel different than somebody else that might be doing the exact same thing that you do on your show. But you look better, you sound better. So
Ex-
people are going to turn into you instead of tuning into your competition. Something to think about.
exactly.
Just something to think about. But I know you want to talk about Ghostbusters too. So, what do you want to know about, the group I belong to, and stuff like that?
So, when it comes down to that, I mean,
Hmm.
do you know when the group started?
We're actually going to be having our 10-year anniversary this year. We started 10 years ago. And it happened, I don't want to say by a fluke, but there's a great website out there for anybody looking for anything Ghostbusters related, and it's GB Fans. So, and they even have a Facebook group, and so back in that time, back when the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters got started, there was a group of like-minded individuals. Bobby O'Connor, who's actually the current reigning world record holder for the world's largest collection of Ghostbusters memorabilia. Um, Tony Gonzalez, who's our current president for the year 2022. Mark Napick, and a few others that got together. And I kind of feel like it's the story of like how Metallica got started. So um, all of them were kind of just posting in the forum for GB fans saying, hey, are there any Ghostbusters groups, franchises, as we like to be known, in the Northeast Ohio area? And it just seemed to be like the same couple of people that were responding week after week to their inquiries. And so they finally are just like, well, screw it. Let's get together. Let's meet up. So they picked a spot. They got together. They had their first meeting. They had like 30 or some odd people end up showing up. And the group started that way. And back then it was kind of just a cosplay thing. Like they would show up at Comic Cons and, pass out business cards and stuff like that. And then, 2016 rolled around and there was the opportunity through Ghost Corps that had finally got started through Sony Pictures, mainly in part thanks to Ivan Reitman, which maybe not a lot of people know. And then they were looking for franchises that can become official Ghost Corp sponsored franchises. And one of the things that they were looking at was charitable activities, like using taking the phrase "bustin' makes me feel good" and actually putting it to some kind of good use. So, we started working with different charities. We had a ton when we first started. Ronald McDonald House, the American Heart Association, the American Lung Society, and then we were making good money, but all that money we had to split between all these different charities, and we felt like instead of trying to do as much good as we can with all kinds of different charities, let's focus our attention on one charity. So we looked into some charities in the area and we found one called A Special Wish. It's kind of like Make a Wish, but for Cleveland. And they've worked with WWE and a couple of big entities. Some of the appearances that John Cena has made in the area over the years has been through A Special Wish. And that's what they do. They grant wishes to children who have terminal illness, but they also help families in need. Um, you know, when I first joined the group just a couple of years ago, um, one of the first things that I saw get posted once I became an official member was all the money that we had raised throughout the year went to a family who had a child who was stage 4 terminal cancer. And yeah, the family had bought their family or had bought the children tickets to go to Disney World for Christmas. And the most unthinkable thing happened. Their house burned down. All their Christmas presents gone. Obviously, the tickets to Disney World gone, all of that. And they lived in an area where the school actually took up a fundraiser for them as well. So between the money that the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters raised and their school system raised, they raised enough money not only to buy a few Christmas presents, but obviously replace their Christmas tree, but not just send the family to Disney World, which was the big major gift that the family had gotten. And anybody that's been to Disney World in the last 10 years knows that stuff ain't cheap. Me and my now wife went when we got engaged 4 or 5 years ago, and it cost us $1,200 a piece. So imagine trying to take an entire family. And we were there 3 days, 3 days, and it was $1,200 a piece. And that was flight, hotel, all of it, $1,200 a person. Um, so I can just imagine what it's like with a whole family. But we raised enough money for them not only to go to Disney World, but to go to Universal Studios as well.
Wow.
And knowing that that was one of the first things that I saw after I became an official member, I'm like, I'm in the right place. And I was a Boy Scout growing up. I mean, you may not think it hearing my mouth, but um, I was a Boy Scout growing up, and that was the one thing that I loved doing. I did day camp staff every summer. It didn't matter if my little brother was there or if I had friends' brothers who were there or whatever. I just liked doing it. I loved doing good, you know, and I don't have kids, so I didn't want to do something with Boy Scouts and get yo, that's the creeper dude that ain't got no kids but can't grow up and has to be in Boy Scouts his entire life. Like, I didn't want to be that guy. So I'm like, I need to find something that's a little bit more me, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I found Ghostbusters. So, I joined up the group, and yes, we do have to do background checks because of our charitable contributions, and we work with children. We don't want somebody who can potentially, not saying it would happen, but could potentially end up in a very negative situation being around children. So that's the only reason we do background checks. I mean, and there are definitely things that, we could potentially not, I don't want to say let fly or let slide, but we could look past it if it doesn't involve theft or, some insane level of violence or, some kind of sexual or child-based crime. We'll kind of look past it and be like, all right, you're on a probationary period here, and if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, we're sorry. But like, we're a charitable entity. We have to protect our interests in that as well. You know, but yeah, I mean, we've been around for 10 years. We got about 20 or so active members. Um, we have some events that have become staple events for us that we do every year. Obviously, COVID shut a lot of those down, and there's still some of those are still trying to recover.
Right.
But I mean, but when our zoo in our area was doing events with costume characters and stuff like that for Halloween, we were a staple in that. We were there every year, and they gave us a reasonable donation for our time. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason we did it. They offered it. We were going to do it regardless. But they're like, you're coming out here. We know that this is for charity. It's not going in our pockets. We don't make any money doing this. 100% of our profit from badge sales, um, other little trinkets, raffles, anything that we do, 100% of it goes to charity. Our members pay a due every year to be in our group, and that's the money that we use to replenish everything. We do not keep a penny of anything that we make. All of it goes to a special wish. That to me, it was the selling point. I'll pay
That's
10 bucks.
amazing, though. It
Yeah,
really is.
I'll pay $10 a year to be in the group. I don't. It's $10. It's. I was gonna spend that at McDonald's. You know, Probably shouldn't be spending it at McDonald's, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, and yeah, I mean, that was a huge selling point for me was knowing that we don't keep a penny of that, and that our group replenishes our funds every year, and that to me was awesome. I mean, we just, we asked all of our members, hey, can you put in $1? Since that's what the cost of the Ivan Reitman Memorial pins were on GB fans. If you guys put in $1, we'll buy 30 of these pins. You guys get first take of them. Whatever's left over, we sell and we give the money to a special wish. Everybody said
Yeah,
yes.
that's awesome. I didn't realize how the Ghostbusters franchises, how much they actually do.
Hmm.
Excuse me, until I started looking into it and talking to people, and it's amazing. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the big thing. I mean, I hate to down it because it did so much good for the community, but I mean, that Ghost Heads documentary only touched the surface of some of the things that these groups do. And I know some stuff about the makers of that film that I'm not going to repeat because I don't want any ill will between me or my group in the community. But you know, there's some things that were definitely left out of that film that I think people should know about a lot of the things that we do. I mean, look at what the Buffalo Ghostbusters just did for Hook and Ladder 8, a place that most of us find more sacred to them than a church. And, you know, that building to me means the world to me. And to know that they had the original Ghostbusters 2 sign that was unfortunately in more disrepair than they could afford, and to see that the Buffalo Ghostbusters put out a GoFundMe and every franchise in the world put money in to get them a screen accurate size, color, everything sign that they could permanently hang outside Hook and Ladder 8, and they got it right before the premiere of Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm like, that is amazing. And, franchises send them their patches and they have a wall of fame, and they allow this, to me, is the most amazing part. If they're not busy, or if they're not getting ready to leave on a call, or if they're not doing some kind of training session, if you show up there and you're in a Ghostbusters t-shirt or a Ghostbusters flight suit, or you have your Ecto parked outside or anything like that, they will let you go in there and talk to them. They will take pictures with you. They let people take pictures of the Hook and Ladder 8 sign out front that has Mowgli's face on it. And it's definitely a huge deal for us to be able to go to that building. And there's a lot of filming sites in New York that don't want us anywhere near them. We find ways to get there, but that's another story.
Right.
you know, but that, to me, has been the coolest part of this. And, are there jerks in this fan base? Yeah, but there's jerks in the Star Wars fan base. Trust me, I know. There's jerks in the Star Trek fan base. I can't tell you how toxic the Pittsburgh Steelers fan base is about some things, and I've seen it because I host a Pittsburgh Steelers show, but you'll have that everywhere. And it's just what level of stupid you're willing to deal with. And I'll leave it at that. There's a lot of toxic topics in the Ghostbusters community, as you'll find out the more you deep dive into this fan base.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've talked to, I can't remember which group it was. I want to say it was either one of the West Virginia chapters or one of the Virginia chapters, and
Hmm.
they didn't have a whole bunch of good stuff to say about one of the Ghost Corpse movies, but everybody's view when you're putting stuff together is going to be different, and I think that's what makes everything as great as it is, especially when it comes to the Ghostbuster stuff, just because everybody's perspective is different, and you're not going to find somebody that or everybody that agrees with, the way
Exactly.
things that are done.
And here's what I'll say to that. If it's the movie that I think you're talking about, I wasn't a fan of it either. But it had nothing to do with the sexual orientation, the gender, or anything like that of any of the cast members. It just had to do with the fact that it was a poorly written, poorly produced, poorly put out product. The movie
And
was
that's
not entertaining.
that is
Bottom line.
exactly what I say. Everybody's in it is funny. If it had been written better, it would have been a lot better.
And maybe if Sony hadn't blackballed Ivan Reitman and tried to backdoor him out of his contract that he's had at that point for 35 years, maybe some of the hardcore fans wouldn't have hated the movie as much as they did. But also, if you would listen to the fan base and heard them say, we don't want a reboot, we want a definitive ending point to the story that we have had for 35 years, then you can reboot all you want. We would have been fine with it. I mean, look at the difference between the reviews of that movie, and I'm talking about the real ones, not the fake ones that Sony put out there that they wanted you to read. Trust me, the Sony hack was very revealing. And the reviews for Afterlife.
Yeah,
Everybody loves Afterlife. I'll say 90% of the real Ghostbusters audience didn't like the 2016 movie because it was just a bad movie. I wouldn't even say it was bad. I'd say it was piss poor. It could have been much better. And
yes,
then you have the 10% that was what Sony wanted everybody to see, which was the sexist bullshit that nobody said. And again, the Sony hack was very revealing. All of that information is available to anybody that wants it. That's all I'll say on
yeah. I
that.
mean, and I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but I was reading somewhere that if you look at the the ratings and reviews between the two, of
Hmm.
course, one came out during a pandemic and the other
Hmm.
one wasn't.
Hmm.
And you take the one
They
that
made the exact same amount of money in
exactly.
way less amount of time. And the home video sales of Afterlife have been through the roof. It's been the number one movie since it got released on home video. So that again is saying something, and again, I don't want to dwell on that particular topic because it's toxic and I don't want people to think that I'm sexist when I'm not, but I'm not a fan of some of the people that were in that movie either. So for me, already seeing who was cast, I'm just like, this doesn't seem like it's a movie for me. I don't think I'm not a fan of these people, but it's Ghostbusters. I'll give it a chance. But then when I saw what they did with the movie and some of the undertones that were in the movie, I'm like, nope. I walked out of the theater. My wife, and I'll say this, okay? My wife loves the new trilogy of Star Wars because Rey is a strong female character. She did not want to watch the 2016 movie only because of my personal view. And I told her, don't form your own opinion. I'll leave the room, but form your own opinion. After 20 minutes, she turned the TV off. She's like, I can't take it anymore. It's not Ghostbusters. And that's somebody who's a casual fan who, before we got together, knew nothing but the movies. I mean, she knows a lot more about the franchise now, obviously, because she married a psycho, and I'm obsessed. But, um, but I mean, even her, somebody who loves those strong female characters and feels a bigger connection to a movie when it's a character she can relate to, even said, "This is not Ghostbusters. I can't watch it." And
Yeah.
that's the biggest advocacy I can give to that movie. And this is also the same woman who, like I said, is a casual fan, cried at the end of Ghostbusters Afterlife and understood what Jason and Ivan were trying to do with that movie because even afterwards she said, "I miss my father who died right when we got together." My mom said the same thing. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
right.
mean,
I took my mom to
af-
go see Ghostbusters Afterlife. So
there you go.
payback.
Afterlife to me was like it was more of a family type of movie,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I
Where
loved it. I loved it for that.
Yeah, and the 2016 was just an hour and a half long, or unless you watch the extended 2 hour cut, long dick and fart joke.
Right? I am curious. What did you think about what they did with Harold Ramis in that, and how they brought him in?
Oh, damn you for making me cry. Um, I liked it, and me being a lifelong, I was born in 1984. So for me, I've been around Ghostbusters literally my entire life. I grew up playing with the Kenner toys. I grew up watching real Ghostbusters. I grew up watching the original movies. I'm I right when all the hype started coming around about there being a Ghostbusters 3 before these four at the time because Harold was still with us, um, were too old to do it. I started writing a fan film script and I was going to turn it into Dan and turn it into Sony and be like, is this good enough? Can we get this made before, you know, something happens, unfortunately? And then 6 months later, we lose Harold. And I think that definitely stalled Sony in a way because they knew how instrumental Harold was to the Ghostbusters movie that we saw on screen. And we have Ivan to thank for that too. Um, so seeing how they gave us a definitive end to the Egon character. And speculate all you want about what happened with the ghost taser at the beginning when Zool is loose in the house and all that. Um, you can speculate on whether or not he gave himself a heart attack or Zool scared him to death or whatever, but that's obviously what happened. That moment with Zool in the house killed him. The movie's been out for long enough. I don't care if I'm spoiling anything for anybody. If you haven't seen it yet, shame on you. You're not a real Ghostbusters fan. And I'll say that. I'll say that. Um, and then, the PKE meter acknowledging when he's in the house and he's interacting with Phoebe and then interacting with Callie and obviously the conclusion of the movie, which I will not spoil for anybody if you haven't seen it yet. Get up off your butt and order it on Amazon Prime and watch it tonight. Um, but just seeing the love and care that they put into memorializing this character that for me was not my favorite Ghostbuster. You know, Ray has always been my favorite. But I appreciated Egon because if it wasn't for Egon, we wouldn't have the tools and the talent to make this happen. You know, again, stealing a line. Um, but I mean, as a Ghostbusters fan for my entire life, I bawled my eyes out like a little child in a toy store being told no at the end of that movie. And my mom, who has not seen a Ghostbusters movie since she took me to see Ghostbusters 2 in theaters in 1989, cried at the end of Ghostbusters Afterlife. And on the way home, she thanked me for taking her to go and see it. And I told her, I'm like, this is a thank you for turning me into a psychotic fanatic about this franchise and, you know, giving me something that I can love and adore my entire life. You know, do I get fanatical about it? Absolutely. But everybody's fanatical about something. And,
Exactly.
you know, even my mom said to me, because her dad died, you know, a few years ago, my grandfather, and even she said, it made me miss my dad. And remember that even though our relationship gets rocky at times, I still love him. And I almost stopped the car in the middle of the freeway and was just like, you've just given the absolute best review this movie could ever possibly get for that statement right there. A woman in her 60s who has not seen a Ghostbusters movie in 32 years. So think about that. Or, you know, I mean, it's miraculous how that movie affected people. And my sister's girlfriend has never seen a Ghostbusters movie in her life. Shame on her. I've rectified that issue. I gave them copies of the movies, bought them, and said, "Here, education." She saw after she saw Afterlife and cried at the end of it. So, I mean, this movie affects any level of Ghostbusters fan that there is.
Yes, yes, and I think even if you're not like the ultimate fan, if you watch it,
You
it
feel
hooks you in.
something. Yes.
Yeah,
And, you know, was reusing Gozer lazy? Probably. But Gozer was their biggest adversarial foe. And if any one of their foes, when there's only been two theatrically, Gozer would be the one I would anticipate to come back. I think Vigo isn't strong enough without his river of slime. But Gozer is a demigod who could potentially continually enter our plane of existence through situations like what we saw in Afterlife. And seeing that Gozerian calendar with all those years that Gozer has either A, attempted, B, succeeded, because obviously she did in 1984, and then again in 2021, and C, could potentially succeed again. You could do a lot with the Gozer character, but I would love to see them say, okay, Gozer, you're trapped now because you're in, I don't know, like 200 traps, I think they said they used in that film. Let's see what your sister Tiamat's all about now.
there
You
you
know,
go. Yeah, and
you know,
the possibilities are endless. And I've talked to
hmm
people who think that that's pretty much the end of the franchise, but I don't think so. I think, especially now, because, you and I are adults, we're about the
hmm
same age. It's like
hmm
they reintroduced the franchise to a whole new group of people.
and amen for that, man. Amen for that. And you know, these characters are young enough, and I know that they're getting up there in age now because of how much time passed between when they filmed the movie and when it was able to be released. But they'll all be over the age of 18 next year. All of them. Except for maybe Logan. I think he was the youngest of the four. But
Yeah.
Finn is already over the age of 18. McKenna turned 17 this year. I think Celeste was 17 when they filmed the movie, and Logan was, I think he was 10 when they started filming it, so he might be around 13 now. You know, just thinking of passage of time. they could potentially build something on that. And obviously, we saw in the after credit scene that Winston has intentions of reopening Ghostbusters. Who better to bring in there than the four children who just helped stop an end of the world type event? And I love that cast. I think that cast is perfectly dynamic. You have Phoebe, who's very much like her uncle, and I don't care. You have Finn, who's the non-believer, who they had to turn into a believer. You have Podcast, who's very much like Ray and has that childlike mentality. And then you have Celeste, who, Lucky, who just kind of fell into this and whose father is a cop. So it's very much like the Winston character, since Winston is a army, well, not an army brat, but a military brat of some sort. I think it was Marines that he was in.
And
Or
see,
what?
I feel the same way. You know, when it
Mhm.
comes down to the cast that they had, it almost felt like really young versions of the original.
Yeah. hmm hmm
And
Yeah, and
I think that's why he did that.
yeah, and that's the whole. I mean, Jason made this as a love letter to everybody, not just his father, not just to Dan, not just to Harold, but to the fans too. Who he even said like he felt like we got cheated in the 2016 movie. Where, was Dan in the movie? Yeah, but it was a crappy cameo. Was Bill in the movie? Yeah, and you gave him exactly what he wanted, kill him off. But it wasn't the Venkman character, you know. So we still felt cheated in that. And then you had Ernie Hudson in the movie. You had Annie Potts in the movie. You had Sigourney Weaver in the movie, but they weren't the characters that we grew up knowing and falling in love with over 35 years at that point.
Right.
And, to me, that was the biggest slap in the face. And, I don't, again, I don't want to get too deep into that issue, but, it definitely felt like a slap in the face to everybody who's been involved with this franchise for 37 going on 38 years.
Yeah, and I think that with if they never do another one, it was a perfect ending, which I hope they do
Well,
more.
well, Jason does have a 3-year contract, and I don't know if this is breaking news. I'm pretty sure Jason Fitzsimmons has said something about it already. But Jason did sign a 3-year deal with Ghost Corps, and he did say that there are definitely more stories to tell. And anybody that watched the special features on Afterlife did hear that Ivan and Dan did have ideas. Now, does the passing of Ivan put a little bit of a damper on that? Maybe. But there are still very like-minded individuals that work at Ghost Corps, and obviously they see the success of this movie. They see how much the fans loved it. Did it make back as much money as they were hoping it did? I don't know. But you're also looking at post-pandemic numbers. That's one thing. And two, they made that movie for $17 million. They made back about 200 million. So I mean that's a huge financial success for Sony.
Right.
So I would think it would garner another sequel. And remember, folks, wouldn't have even gotten Afterlife if it A hadn't been for the failure of the 2016 movie, and B, the success of the 2009 video game. If the video game had sucked and hadn't sold, Ghostbusters 3 would have been exactly where it's been sitting since 1989. The floor of Sony, nobody paying attention to it.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. You know, when the game came out, I played it. It was very,
Oh,
very good.
I'm going to age myself here, but that's fine because I've already said what year I was born. Um, I worked for Blockbuster in 2009 when the video game came out, and we had a PlayStation 3 in the store. I walked in the day it was officially released because we got it early, I'll admit, but we weren't allowed to rent it out. Um, and I came in there. It was my day off. I walked in there, grabbed a copy of the game, and stood in front of that PlayStation 3 for hours playing it. And we rented out of every copy by the end of the weekend because people saw me in there playing it. So yay me, I guess. I don't know, but it was a great game. I love it. I own it on PlayStation 3 and the remastered on PlayStation 4. It's still a fun game to this day. Whenever I need a release, I grab that. or Batman, but mainly Ghostbusters.
Yeah, and I think they did that really well. I mean, they even though it's basically a prequel, they
Mhm.
hinted at there was going to be a new crew.
Yeah, and that was the whole thing, and there was the joke in there about franchises coming soon and all that too, and obviously that was a nod to all the fan groups that exist and everything, but you know, for a lot of people, that is still, even though Afterlife has been released, is still Ghostbusters 3. And think about it. Gozer was kind of the villain in the video game too. Yeah, it turned out to be Evo Shandor in Destructor form, but Evo Shandor had a lot to do with Gozer coming to this plane of existence. So, in a way, it's Gozer. So, people bitching about Gozer being in Afterlife, she was in the video game too. Sorry. Hate
Yeah,
to be.
exactly. And I love how J.K. Simmons played that character in Afterlife.
Did you care that he was only in the movie for 5 minutes?
I don't think, even though I'd like it to have been a little bit longer, I don't think it mattered too awful much because it was still a very powerful part.
And think about it. Evo Shandor, the character that he portrayed in the movie, and I thought he was a perfect Evo, even though he's only in the movie for 5 minutes and then got ripped in half. But I mean, just think about that. That just shows you he dedicated his entire life and part of his afterlife to idolizing and deitizing this creature, and her thanks to him for bringing her to this plane of existence not once but twice. And you have to think that she remembered what happened to her in 1984. Um, she's just like, dude, you got my ass kicked in 1984, and you're probably about to get my ass kicked again. Rip. Like she didn't care. And that to me is just like, see, Gozer gives no fucks.
Right?
And Tiamat's even worse than Gozer. So if you thought it was wrong that they ripped Evo Shandor in half, just think about whoever it is that brings Tiamat into this plane of existence. What's going to happen to them?
Exactly. And the fact that I don't know if a lot of people realize who actually played her.
Oh God,
You know,
Olivia Wilde, man. I mean, I'm just like one of the most beautiful women on the planet. Sorry to my wife, but one of the most beautiful women on the planet, and you turned her into a picture perfect Gozer.
and you would never know it was her unless you actually looked at the credits.
Well, she wasn't even credited. It wasn't
Oh,
until
really?
it wasn't until Adam Savage revealed it on Tested that they revealed that it was her, and then all the behind the scenes stuff. And they're like, yes, Olivia Wilde was one of the people that played Gozer. There was actually three. One woman did her voice. Olivia was most of her, and then I think when it was the half manifestation, excuse my Daffy Duck syndrome or Porky Pig syndrome, uh, half manifested after they sucked Zool back into the trap, it was somebody else. But for most of it, yes, it was Olivia Wilde. But yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome.
And see, I didn't actually learn that until I talked to the Alberta Ghostbusters.
Hmm.
Just because they worked on some of the stuff that they did,
Yep. 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 They were
and
involved in a lot of it. Yeah.
he told me that, and I was just like, "You got to be kidding me! You'd never know."
Nope. No, and that, again, I mean, that's one of the cool things about, that movie. And I mean, I've seen it. I saw it 4 times in theaters the week it opened, because the movie actually was officially released on my birthday. So I'm like, wow, for my 37th birthday, I get a Ghostbusters movie. How cool is that? Um, took my mom to the
Yeah,
midnight premiere, took my wife and my sister and her girlfriend to to a release on my birthday, and that's what we did for my birthday. Uh, Tony, our president's birthday was the day after mine, so we went and saw it again for his birthday, and then we took his kids to go see it the day after that. Every single one of those, I was in a flight suit. So, that's how much this movie meant to me. And I cried every time. And even when I watch it now, I cry at the end. It's just a powerful movie. It's a great movie. I think it's just what this fan base needed to reinvigorate everything. And yeah, there's people that don't like this movie either, but at this point, it's whatever. The movie did
Yeah, I
exactly
mean,
what it needed to do. It revitalized the franchise, and I think we're going to get more movies. I'm convinced of that.
yeah, I say at least one more, if not maybe two, and
hmm
I hope they keep the same cast.
I don't see why they would change the cast at this point. And I mean, I hope I'm not breaking this news, but from what I'm hearing from Netflix, this season of Stranger Things that's coming out is the last. So Finn Wolfhard is going to be free to do whatever he wants after this.
Nice.
And they were talking about that Netflix TV show too that was supposed to talk about more with the kids too. So we'll have to see what's going to happen with that. Maybe that's how Finn's contract with Netflix gets worked out.
Yeah, and um, I don't know if a lot of people know because I didn't watch Stranger Things until I figured out that one of the cast members was going to be in this,
Mm.
and the fact that I think they did one or two episodes that wasn't exactly Ghostbuster based, but it
They
had him dress up,
Yeah,
wasn't
it
it?
was for Halloween, and the show takes place in the 80s. So season 1 was 83, season 2 was 84. So for Halloween in the second season, which would be 1984, they dressed up as the Ghostbusters. And it was for one episode, but one of the characters was in a flight suit for 2 episodes because he got stuck in the upside down again. Um, but uh, but yeah, it was a neat little throwback. And Todd McFarlane, one of the greatest toy makers and comic book writers and illustrators, released a 4-pack of all the kids from Stranger Things dressed up as the Ghostbusters. So I have Finn Wolfhard in a Ghostbusters flight suit twice because I also have the Plasma series figure. So, and I
Nice.
hate to say it, but McFarlane did it better.
Yeah, he is very talented. That is for sure.
hmm
Um, what do you think of the Hasbro line that's come out? And I think they released some Kinder stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, they re-released the original 4 Ghostbusters, the Ecto, and Slimer, Stay Puffed, and Fearsome Flush, and Bug-Eye, who actually made his big screen debut in Afterlife as well. I liked that they redid those Kenner toys. I would love to see more of them. Mainly a firehouse, hint, hint. But the damn box is too big to fit on the shelves, so unless they find a way to make it more assembly required than was originally required in the 80s, I don't see it coming out anytime soon unless it's a HasLab project. There we go. Ding, hint, hint. HasLab project. Kenner Firehouse, please. Um, the Plasma series figures, other than Ray looking more like Paul Reiser than Dan Aykroyd, I love them. I wish that the original 4 had each had a proton stream, but they're fixing that issue, so I can live with that. Um, Gozer, I think, is the best toy out of it. I have the Diamond Select figures, which to me are the mecca of the way that those guys have ever looked. Um, except for I want to say maybe Dana. I don't think that they've ever really gotten Dana right. And everybody out there saying that they've never seen a good looking Bill Murray action figure, that's because Bill Murray's a little bit of a dick about his likeness. So that's why every figure looks a little bit different. But I think between Diamond Selects and Hasbro, they've gotten them the closest. The Maddie figures were great, but I don't own any. Oh, I own one of them. I'll take that back. But I do have the original 6, so I was able to build the Terror Dog. Out of the second line, I have the Ecto, and I have the Phoebe Ghost Egon 2-pack and Trevor. Those are the only two that I have out of that. Have them all in my cart on Amazon. Just need the money to pull the trigger. Um, But yeah, I mean, I'm loving the plasma series. I loved the Kenner re-releases and really hope they do more. Um, the more kiddie role-playing stuff, the PKE to me I think was the coolest. The proton pack and the neutrona wand. I know a lot of people say it works really good with the spirit pack. But my HasLab uh, Spanglish Neutrona wand works just fine with my Spirit Pack. Yes, that's right. I have a Spirit Pack, and it is modded to look like an 84. Fight me. I don't care. I did order the ha I did order the HasLab pack, and most of the parts that are on this are going to go on that, and the Spirit Pack is going to get hung on the wall and never touched again. But I have a bad back. I have bad knees. I can't carry around a 50-pound proton pack. Sorry.
Right. I love what they've done since the new movie came out with all the line. I mean, we've said it before that it invigorated a whole new generation and introduced them to it, and
Mhm.
you know,
I
all
kind
they
of
can
wish that
do
the
is keep going.
scalpers would just, yeah, I kind of wish that the scalpers that are out there would just find a very dark and deep hole and just bury themselves because even during a pandemic, okay, so let me paint this picture for you, okay? During a pandemic is when that original line of the Kenner re-releases came out. And that was just Stay Puffed, Slimer, and the Four Ghostbusters. Even here in Ohio, and we hadn't been locked down officially yet, but it was wear masks, do this, do that, all that stuff. Um, me, somebody who had pre-ordered the figures the day that they went live from the New York Toy Show, had to go to 5 different Walmarts to get my pre-order honored that they canceled
Wow.
because scalpers walked into the stores and bought every figure off the shelves. And by the time me and one of the other members of the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters got to our 5th Walmart where the figures hadn't made it on the shelf yet, and we found the shipping boxes sitting in the hallway, or the aisleway, I guess I should call it, and we picked them up and took them to the counter, and the girl's just like, oh yeah, somebody already came in and bought the first run of them. What? You mean there were more? So we only got one full set each, and
Wow.
we had pre-ordered 2 sets because we wanted one to open and display and one to keep on card and hang up. So scalpers are the scum of the earth to me. And it's not the first time that they did it with, the Plasma Series figures. They've done it with the Ectos. They've done it with the AMC Ecto. I witnessed it personally. So yeah, scalpers
Yeah,
suck. And then they put the stuff online for 3 to 4 times their suggested retail cost. And the only way they're going to stop. So listen up, everybody that's a collector out there. The only way scalpers are going to stop is if people stop buying the stuff for the prices they sell it for. Period.
exactly. Yeah, and you're right. I saw the Echo tens. I think it was on eBay, and they were going for 150, $200, and some were more than that. And it wasn't but what, $30 maybe?
50.
Was it?
Yeah, it was 49.99.
I just
Yeah,
I just
and
know
I got one.
they're god
Yeah.
awful expensive.
Yeah, and my wife was not too happy that I spent $15 on a popcorn or $50 on a popcorn bowl. But when I showed it to her and showed her how big the thing was, and I told her, I'm like, we got a free bag of popcorn with it. So, and I would have spent $15 on that. So in reality, it was only about $35 if you take the cost of a large popcorn off of it. Not a bad deal. It lights up. Mine actually had a decent paint job on it. I've seen horrible paint jobs, but and you could put it behind the Plasma Series figures and it scales perfectly.
There you go.
So
Yeah.
ding, winner in my book. And then, we went and saw the movie at Cinemark, and I bought all four cups to get all four toppers. I have the mini puffed popcorn bowl, so it's like you're not going to bitch about that, but you're going to bitch about that. Like, we spent the same amount of money,
Yeah.
you know, but there were
But
four of
at the
us.
end of
So,
yeah, and at the end of the day, it's collectible. I mean, you'll never see that again. Not that particular, you know.
no, I got to say this because AMC heard the horror stories that people were going through trying to get those popcorn tubs. So I got to give kudos to AMC for making those retail available for everybody to be able to get one that wanted one. Because the AMC in my area, they got five. And we
Wow.
saw one employee walking out the door with one before they had even opened to the public. Because we had to stand outside and wait for them to unlock the door. And there goes somebody in an AMC t-shirt walking out of the theater with a popcorn tub and taking it to their car. The person in line in front of us was there to see Afterlife, so obviously they wanted one. The person behind them was there to see Afterlife, so obviously they wanted one. Me and my buddy that I went with to go pick them up because we were going to see it at a different theater, we wanted them. That's five. So everybody else that was in line behind them that wanted one, or behind us that wanted one, unfortunately lucked out. And we bought one apiece because we weren't being greedy.
Right.
And that's not what I mean, obviously we're not in it for that, but you know, those people were pissed that they weren't able to get one, and they all watched the same dude walk out of the theater with it and put it in his car. And people started offering him upwards of $100 to get that off of him.
Wow.
And I don't know if you heard this story online. I talked about it on my show the week the movie opened. A little girl, all she wanted for Christmas was one of those AMC popcorn tubs because of how expensive they were. So the mom went to AMC to get it for her, and they took her to see the movie too, but they took her to get the popcorn tub, most importantly. Some jerk in line ahead of them, maybe four or five people ahead of them, bought out the entire theater's cost or stock of the popcorn tubs. The manager did nothing to stop it. None of the employees that worked there did anything to stop him. Nobody was just like, hey, maybe these people in line at the concession stand want one of those too. No, he walked out of there with 20 of them.
Golly.
So obviously the people that were in line were kind of just like, hey, asshole, we want some of those too. And he flipped them the bird and said, see you on eBay.
Wow.
And I put out a call to arms to the Ghostbusters fan base that week on my show and said, this is wrong, and we need to stop somebody like this. And by the grace of God, between one of the Ghostbusters groups I'm in, somebody said, I have an extra that is just going to sit in a box on my shelf. I'd rather your kid have a Christmas that they can be happy about and remember and get the one item that they wanted than to watch this collect dust in my collectibles room, and sold it to the woman at cost.
Yeah, I mean, you don't find that very often anymore.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's awesome. And even my wife, who, again, is not a huge Ghostbusters fan, she's becoming one because she's married to me and she has to. It was in our vows. Um, that's a joke. I did not put that in our vows. Her mother would have killed me.
All
But,
right.
you know, uh, even she said this is wrong. Can we find one that's a decent price on eBay and buy it for her and offer to ship it to her on us? And I'm like, if you can find one that's under $100, I'd be more than happy to. But we can't afford to spend $100 on this because unfortunately I went batshit crazy when the movie came out and spent our play money going to see the movie 4 times. you know, but
Yeah,
is what it is. It was going to happen regardless. And, it was the best birthday week I ever had. So, happy wife, happy life, happy husband, happy wife. So,
that's it. Yeah, and it worked out in the end for the little girl. So I mean, that's always a good thing.
yeah. And, people were saying, get the Play Mobile one. It's way more functional and it does more. And I can't disagree with that. But at least that, I mean, you can take the roof rack off of it. And like I said, it scales really well with the Plasma Series figures. So you can stick a couple of them in there and have them drive down, the carpet, in an Ecto that at least looks like something from the movie, not the Fright Features one and not the Kenner re-release. Which the Fright Features one's cool. I have it, but it doesn't light up. The light bar is a sticker, and the figures look more cartoonish, but they're cool. I bought them because I'm obsessed. But I mean, if the kid wanted that particular item, get the kid that, we should be able to get our kids whatever they want and not have to deal
Yes.
with jerk offs on eBay looking to make a profit off of somebody else who probably was in the same store you were at the same time you were and watched you walk out of the store with a cart full of crap that you don't want. Sorry, my
No,
opinion.
I mean, I agree. I agree. So, um, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, sorry I was late, but like I said,
Hey, it
week
happens.
weekly meeting at the radio station ran longer than it should have. But did you have any other questions for me about maybe podcasting or maybe what Redline Radio does or anything else, or maybe about the Northeast Ohio Ghostbusters or anything? Or
No, no, I'm definitely going to probably try to reach out to you more on the
yeah,
podcast side of things for sure. Try to figure out what I need to do as far as what I'm doing wrong with what I'm doing now.
like I said, man, and I'll end it with this. Like I said, you're you are your brand. Do whatever makes you happy. Take if you get negative comments, take them with a grain of salt. You're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And yes, and I know this for a fact, almost everybody and their mother nowadays has a podcast. So, yeah, you're eventually going to run into somebody who has the same content as you. Don't let that dissuade you. Do something that they're not. Watch their show, learn from it, or listen to their show, learn from it. When I do my true crime stuff, I listen to podcasts like True Crime Garage. They're one of the best ones out there. Um, the Unsolved Mysteries podcast. If I'm doing something paranormal that's not Ghostbusters paranormal, what is it? Darkness Radio. They have a really good paranormal based podcast. Just go out there and listen to other podcasts that are in your wheelhouse. And I don't want to use the term steal, but borrow what you think works from them, but give it your own special twist. Like I said, my show is about something different every week. Obviously, the Steelers show is about Steelers football, but we talk about news from around the league. You have to. You play 17 games a year. 4 of them are against the same opponent twice. So, you have to talk about those other teams because they're your competition, be it if they're in your division or not. With the NASCAR thing, there's 46 drivers, give or take, in every race. That's 46 drivers you got to talk about. You know, if and with my regular show, this week, damn it, Scott Hall died, so I have to do something about Scott Hall because I'm a huge wrestling fan. I got into wrestling during the Monday Night War. Scott Hall was a huge part of that, you know,
Yeah.
and so I gotta dedicate some time to him. But I also got sad but true news, crazy shit you find on the internet. I got a new segment that I'm debuting this week. I'm starting my own segment on Florida Man because Florida Man does crazy shit every day. So find what works for you. And I'm constantly evolving my show. I'm constantly looking for new avenues to do things. And don't be dissuaded when Facebook puts that warning out there that you're shut down for copyright. Throw it in their face. Do it again next week. If they
Exactly.
try if they try to ban you, like, we're a radio station. Obviously, we have the right to play music. And we play every kind of music that there is because that's the beauty of us being a 24-hour on-demand radio station. We do that, but we do podcasts too. So if I want to play Marilyn Manson on my show, I'm going to play Marilyn Manson. If I want to play Ray Parker Jr. on my show, I'm going to play Ray Parker Jr. Obviously, you know what song that's going to be. You know,
Yeah.
if I want to play, I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. If I want to play Power of Love on my show for a Back to the Future retrospective, you're damn right, I'm going to play it. And I'll take the consequences later. I went on a whole 45-minute rant on my show about how much I hate Facebook right now for the way that they're not just treating me and the radio station I work at, but normal people. People are getting 30-day, 90-day bans for shit they said 7, 8 years ago in groups that are no longer functioning, in groups that are no longer open, that nobody can join. So who's seeing it? Other than the
Yeah.
jerks that sit in the office at Meta, because that's their new company name, and sit there and go, oh, that offends me. Ban. That's literally what it is. And Mark
Yeah. No, I
Zuckerberg admit,
agree.
and Mark Zuckerberg admitted that that's exactly what it is. The independent fact checkers are people that look at it and they say, I don't think that that's news, so they're gonna do it. They throw the block on there. They're not independently fact checking shit. It's their opinion. So until you can sit there and show me proof that what I'm posting is a lie, leave my shit alone. Period. And
Exactly.
I told them flat out on the air, from here on in, and you can share this with your audience, please. From here on in, my goal, week after week on my show, is to have Facebook kick me off the air. Not just mute my music, not just throw the little copyright warning on there, but to officially kick me off the air. I am going to break within reason. There are obviously things even I will not do because I'm a human being and I believe in the rights of everybody. But I will break every rule within reason every week on my show until they throw me off the air. That is my goal.
Yeah, they like to take things a bit far. I do agree with that.
Yeah, YouTube too. Like I said, they shut down my entire stream for playing Meatloaf. Well, I'm doing a retrospective on Meatloaf. Read the title of my show. Don't just have an algorithm running. Use your brain. You're owned by Google, one of the most powerful companies on the planet. You mean to tell me that somebody isn't sitting in the YouTube room at Google, sitting here saying, "Oh, Redline Radio's live. Oh, they're playing a song. Radio is in our title. We're gonna play music."
Exactly.
But this was fun, man, and thank you for reaching out to
Yeah.
me. I, and to anybody else out there that's listening, that is kind of a newer podcaster like you are, or whatever. I'm available to do interviews whenever. And if you want to talk to me about Redline, if you want to talk to me about Ghostbusters or whatever, I'm available. I'm always open to listening. Like I said, normally I do, 1080p video, professional microphone, all that. But my computer wanted to play stupid tonight, and it now seems to be working just fine. So, yeah, I'm going to run a virus scan and then go to bed.
There you go, man. Hey, and let me know when you go to do that Scott Hall episode. I definitely love to listen in on it.
Let me plug my show. Okay. The one thing I haven't done all night. So Money's Crazy Mind can be found every Friday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Redline Radio LLC's Facebook, YouTube, Twitch.tv, Twitter, and then I also have my own personal Facebook page for the show, Money's Crazy Mind Podcast. Just type it in. You'll see my ugly face in a Steelers hat, DX behind me on the wall, and I'm screaming into a microphone. That logo is going to be changing here very soon. I just designed a brand new one, and I'm very proud of it. Um, but yeah, I mean, you can watch the show all those ways. It's also available on demand whenever you need it. I normally try to upload the audio to my webpage, podpage.com/monies-crazy-mind. It normally goes up about a week or so later. I try to give people a chance to watch the video. Um, and then it's also on my Anchor, which you can find on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's on 8 different platforms. You can find them all on the Money's Crazy Mind Facebook page. And check out all of our great content over on Redline Radio. Subscribe, follow us on Facebook. It lets you know every time we go live. Like I said, we got the NASCAR show, Crank It Up, Monday nights, 8:30 to 10. Also on Mondays, comedian Sean Boyd has Just Therapy, the podcast, which is a very good podcast. And he normally brings in a lot of great comedians and stuff like that from 7 to 9 on Mondays. Tuesdays, we've got Talk Sweet with Honey Bad from 11 a.m. to noon. Uh, Tuesday night, Timbuk Tuesdays with comedian Timbuk2. Catchy name there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Wednesday, for all the veterans out there, we have a Veterans Affairs show called Continuing to Serve from 7 to 9. Then we have our second sports show of the week talking about balls. That's right, they're a sports show from 9:30 to 11. Thursday, we got the Lex Vegas show, which is one of our more popular shows. Friday, the Dynamite Dave show from 6 to 7, and then my show 8 to 10. Saturday, another sports show, 4th and 15 from 2 to 4. Then we have the pregame show, which is a music show from 6 to 8. Sunday, we've got It's Real Funny Out There with Kevin Kwan from 5 to 6:55 because they need to be off the air for the number one show on Redline returning next week after all the free agency stuff calms down. The Steel City Renegades from 7 to 9 p.m. So if you're a Steelers fan, check that show out. And then we'll be back for a draft special. And that's going to be a live show from location far, far away from Browns headquarters.
Nice.
since we're in Cleveland. But yeah, man, I mean, that's our entire lineup. Like I said, we got 14 shows. We're loving everything. We're constantly looking for new shows, constantly looking for new sponsors, and we do live ad reads and video ad reads on every single one of our shows. So if you guys are interested in sponsoring Redline Radio or have content that you want to bring to Redline Radio, please, like I said, reach out to us via the Redline Radio LLC page on Facebook. Either myself, the station manager, or Dave, the owner, will get back to you and we'll set up meetings. We'll get everything ready to go. But dude, this has been fun. Thank you for letting me plug. I know there was a lot of stuff to plug, but I respect every show over on Redline. I don't do this by myself. They are part of our family too, and they deserve as much love as I get. So
Definitely. And I definitely will be reaching out about the red line.
yeah.
I, I definitely will.
Yeah, and then let me know whenever you're gonna put this up. Obviously I'll share it. I'll share it on the Redline page too, since I was a part of it. And again, I definitely appreciate this opportunity. And yeah, I mean, if anybody has any questions about anything, I am more than happy to help anybody out because I've been where you guys are, and me going to Redline, complete fluke. Okay, I didn't reach out. Well, I did reach out to them, but not about taking my show there. Another friend of mine used to have a podcast on Redline, and I wanted to interview them for my show, help get them a little bit of exposure, help them get a little bit of exposure. And they said, well, we're under contract, so you got to reach out to Redline. I did. And he's like, why not bring your show here? Oh, I, I didn't know that was possible. I thought you guys found us. I didn't know I could come to you. Met with him, saw that when another one of my friends, Lex, had a show there. And I'm like, okay, that's now two of my friends here that have shows here. Sign me up. And the rest is history. And I keep changing my time slot because of a job that I used to have, but now I'm permanently in the spot I'm in, and I ain't giving it up. I got 2 hours prime time on Friday night. It's mine.
There
Station
you go.
manager's prerogative. I'll put it that way. uh, no, I'm kidding. I actually gave that time slot up to somebody else before, and I just recently was able to get it back. But yeah, I'll give up time slots. I'll give up time slots for another show that I think could use the help. You know, but I mean, I'm averaging 300 to 500 listeners a week, depending on if people remember when my show is that week. But that's why I'm trying to stay in one time slot. Screw you, post office, for making me change my show 5 times in 3 months. But I'm not there anymore, so I don't have to worry about that. But you know, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Find a niche, build your brand, stick with it, and be consistent. That's the best advice I can give anybody. Be consistent. Don't miss weeks. Don't miss shows. It's going to hurt you. And even if you have to run a replay, make sure it's a replay that had high numbers, because then maybe people you can put on there one of my most listened to episodes. You might find a new audience that's just finding your show. Think about what podcast said in Ghostbusters Afterlife. The show really finds itself on episode 46. It could take a while for people to find your content and for the show to find its voice. That's the best advice I can give anybody. And if I could pull that quote from Ghostbusters Afterlife and play it on my show every week, or play it for people at Redline that don't believe me, I would, because it's the truth.
Oh yeah, and hard work pays off.
You have to have the tools and you have to have the talent. If you don't have the tools, Redline can help you get the tools. But you have to bring the talent. We can't give you that. So,
Exactly. Well, I'll definitely will reach out about that and see what we can do.
yeah, for sure, man. I mean, like I said, we're always looking for new shows, and I'm willing to help anybody. Just as long as it's beneficial to you, I'm willing to help. I'm not going to give you all of our secrets, because obviously we have to keep something for ourselves. But I'll point you in the right direction and say, look into this, and if it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't. But I'm always willing to help.
Well, I definitely appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, man. I mean, like I said, I've got 5 years behind my back. I've learned what works, I've learned what doesn't work, and sometimes even what I've learned works doesn't work. You just got to constantly evolve. So, but hey, man,
Definitely.
an hour and a half, man. So, I mean, I'm used to doing 2 hours. So, I mean, the fact that we were able to get an hour and a half out of this, man, I'm happy about that.
Yeah, this is my longest one yet.
And that's the other thing, find a time that works for you. I've seen podcasts that are a half hour, 45 minutes. I'm live. So that's the only reason why I do 2 hours, and most of our shows do 2 hours. If I wasn't live, you can go back and you can see most of my episodes before I was at Redline, I keep about the hour mark, because you start to lose your audience after that. And keep your intro under 2 minutes, or just at 2 minutes. Any longer than that, people are going to get bored waiting for you to start the content.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
So, all right, man. Well, this was fun. Thank you so much for the time. Um, you know,
Absolutely. Thank you
you
for
know,
coming on.
yeah. If you ever want me to come on again, I talk about everything. So, we can make shows out of this, dude. You know, and I'll tell you what, in the next couple of weeks, after people stop dying on me that I'm fans of, I'll bring you on Money's Crazy Mind and we can bullshit about whatever, dude.
I'd love it. I'd love that.
Hey, I pay it back. You got to in this business, man. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye.
All right. Bye. All right, folks. There you have it. That was a very, very great episode. Make sure you go to any of our podcast platforms, YouTube. Check out our website, Beyond Roanoke Entertainment.com. Rate this episode and shoot us a comment. Let us know what you want us to do next. If there's somebody you want to hear or just something you want to talk about, let me know. Thank you. We'll have a new episode next week. See you then.